Welcome to another round of Prem and Proper here at SDH as we take you through the Premier League and let you know what's going on for the week that was and get you ready for the week that will be. Champions League in the middle of all of it all. But what we will do is we will go over the last week and get you ready for the weekend as we number of matches, trim down, and trim down. You're looking at basically about a 12-match sprint for everyone to try to figure out if they're going to stay in the Premier League, where they're going to be in the Premier League, and whether or not they're chasing after European competition. So we will run through all of the results of the last 7 days and get you ready for the next 7 days. Starting all the way back with Monday Night Football back on March the 6th. It was Brentford and Fulham. Brentford, 3-2 win. Big win for them as that rivalry continues to increase between Brentford and Fulham. Brentford and Fulham both inching closer to the European spots. Did not have Brentford and Fulham racing into the European spots as a part of the bingo card when it came to the Premier League this year. But Brentford gets a 3-2 win at a plus 102. Back on Sunday, Liverpool over Manchester United 7-0, and we will hear from the principals about this particular match. And there was a lot to talk about from the 7-0 win by Liverpool, complete capitulation by Manchester United. Liverpool was a plus 146 going into the match, and it was 1-0 at one point. Then it turned into 7-0 by the time it was done. And Erik ten Hag less than pleased. Nottingham Forest and Everton, a 2-2 draw, each team at a plus 204. Ends up with a point each to continue to move them up the standings.
So now it's time for the sound for the week, and we're kind of building up to it. But what we will do is talk a lot about Liverpool and Manchester United. First off, a lot of folks, specifically those from outside the rivalry, were kind of thinking that maybe Manchester United wasn't really all that engaged when it came to the numbers. Stats breakdown from our friends at Sky Sports give a bit of a different story.
Through the towel in, so you've investigated this, did they?
Well, let's be honest, these are the stats. These are the total distances covered by Liverpool and Manchester United in that game at Anfield. Liverpool collectively ran 102.8 kilometres, Manchester United 99. So actually, there's not a great deal of distance between the two sides. So fans that are getting upset about the running stats, perhaps not quite accurate. Let's break it down a little bit and look at the extras, you could say. The sprints. Liverpool, 198 sprints compared to Manchester United's 154. Recovery runs, 64 compared to 57. And then, of course, you've still got that distance there. So what these stats are telling us is that Manchester United's performance overall, when it comes to working hard, running for the badge, playing for the manager, doing what's asked of them, wasn't actually that bad. Of course, Manchester United conceded 6 goals in the second half. I'm going to test you now, Rob. What's the most amount of goals conceded by a Premier League side in one half?
7.
No, 8.
8.
That was Tottenham scoring 8 past Wigan back in 2009, November 2009. It was only 1-0 at half-time, finished
close. I was only 1 away, which is closer than United were to Liverpool in distance.
And 6 is the next amount of goals conceded in the Premier League. Funnily enough, Manchester United conceded 6 to Liverpool. They've actually scored 6.5 against 3 other sides. Nottingham Forest in February 99. No, not Norwich.
Ipswich.
Yes, Ipswich in March 1995. And Newcastle in January 2008.
Close. Okay, so it's interesting to see this, and actually, Jurgen Klopp was talking about those sprints and closing down at the end of the game, and the significance may be there. Not too much, though, in that terms of distance cover, but I guess the yardstick everyone will go back to is that Brentford game, because so much was made of that. So how does that compare?
Well, let's take a look at the running stats with regards to that Brentford game that you mentioned. Now, that was the 4-0 defeat earlier on in the season in West London, where Manchester United players only run a collective 95.5 kilometres. They ran 99 against Liverpool, so that was the worst this season. The game against Liverpool was the second least amount of running that they have done as a unit. You can see the Leeds draw 2-2, the Chelsea draw, and the Newcastle draw. There, some of their weakest running statistics as far as Liverpool, as far as Manchester United are concerned. So, gives you an idea that it wasn't their best day. It wasn't their best form. Interestingly, after that Brentford defeat, Erik ten Hag made the side run 14 kilometres the very next day on their day off. Why did he choose 14 kilometres? Because that was how much more Brentford ran compared to Manchester United. The players were upset, frustrated, disappointed in the manager at the time, who was of course very new, but they all changed their mind because Erik ten Hag joined them on that run. He was a part of the run. If the team loses, he loses. And I think he earns a lot of respect in that moment by joining in with them. So, yeah, interesting to look at that statistics with regards to the running stats there.
Now let's spend some time in the middle of the table with Fulham, Brighton, and Brentford, and what the future could be for those three clubs. Once again, here's the analysis from our friends at the Football Show and Sky Sports Premier League.
Let's take a look now, Rob, at these three. Fulham, Brighton, Brentford, three Premier League sides, all run really effectively as well. That's something to point out. The way that Brentford have been run over the last few years, what Tony Bloom has done with Brighton is magnificent. And Mr. Khan as well at Fulham, they've got a really good model and it's proving to be successful in the Premier League table shake-up. Let's take a look at the fixtures for these sides and see how that might affect what they do over the course of the next 6 games and potentially where they end up finishing in the league. This is Brentford, first of all, of course, never played European football, remarkable situation, over 100 years in the EFL, in the football pyramid, and they are now well and truly punching above their weight. Next up, Everton away, crucial match for them. Then Southampton away, two sides that are fighting for their lives. They've then got Leicester at Brighton away. How big could that game be against Brighton? Could it be decisive? Manchester United away and then Newcastle at home. But Thomas Frank will certainly be looking at those next 4 fixtures and thinking, right, we can win 4 of those. If we can win that Brighton game as well, that could put us in a really strong position. Let's take a look next at Brighton. Away at Leeds, which will be a challenge. We know the noise the fans make there. Crystal Palace at home, who haven't won a game in 2023. Then they've got the FA Cup quarter-final. Now, that'd be interesting to see how much that might affect the players, knowing that they're 90 minutes away from Wembley. They're 90 minutes away from an FA Cup semi-final. That is against Grimsby. It's at home, so there's no travel time. But again, that will take the attention, take the focus ever so slightly off the Premier League. They've then got that huge game with Brentford at home on April the 1st. Bournemouth away, Tottenham away. But that is Brighton's next run of fixtures. And then finally, Fulham, another side that play in the FA Cup. But their match is potentially a little bit more challenging. Arsenal at home, which is live on Sky Sports Premier League and main event on Sunday. They've then got Manchester United away in the FA Cup quarter-final. Significantly, of course, Brighton have got Grimsby of League Two, so that will be a huge test for Marco Silva and Fulham. Bournemouth away fighting for their lives. West Ham at home fighting for their lives in a London derby. We know that the Sean Dyche Everton is going to be a very different proposition on April the 15th, and then Leeds at home on April the 22nd. So when you look at those fixtures, you look at the games coming up, you'd maybe fancy Brentford, no FA Cup match, with an outside chance to cause an upset. But those games against each other are going to prove to be significant as well.
Games in hand for Brighton too. 23 only played, so...
Now to Monday Night Football. Same topic, but this time Jimmy Carragher was asked about Brighton and all of that activity that's going on right below the radar, 6, 7, 8, 9, as Chelsea is starting to kind of figure things out. Perhaps just one game in the Champions League to show what possibly could be for Chelsea. But what about the teams currently above them? Jamie Carragher on Monday Night Football on Sky.
What they're doing, they're playing like a top team. And sometimes we look at teams who we say maybe punching above the weight, and you look at the underlying numbers, you think, how long can that continue for, or will that be a problem for them next season? But I just want to look at the possession of Brighton right now, and this is from September the 29th, when Roberto De Zerbi was appointed as manager. So you've got possession on one side and 10 plus passes sequences per game. How often they do that per game. But if you just look at the possession, 60%. How many teams get over 60% in the Premier League? You've got Arsenal, you've got Brighton, you've got Manchester City. So they're up there alongside the two best teams in the country. And then I just want to actually look, or put just a line down here, and almost separate where you'd see the top teams. So even though Liverpool and Chelsea are not having great seasons, we know how the top teams want to play. They play a certain way. Again, there's no right or wrong way. You'd actually look where Manchester United and Tottenham are, who again, are probably in the top 4 right now. But we know they play a different style of football. They play counter-attacking football, hence why they're not as high as the other sides. And you've just mentioned, Karen, then, about the position of Brentford and the style of play they play. So, again, it tells you there's no right or wrong way. Brentford there because they're a little bit more direct, but Brighton are up alongside the two top teams in the country. Now, we're going to look at last season and this season in terms of Graham Potter, who did a fantastic job at Brighton, and how De Zerbi's actually taken this on. So, the first few sequences there is possession, 10 plus pass sequences and passes per sequence. So, we know from the previous graphic how well they've done. So they've gone to the best in the league. The possession is the best in the league. We've got Man City.
That's extraordinary, isn't it?
It's unbelievable, the job that these are doing and how they're going about it. But the big thing, if you think of Brighton last season, I think was this. So the big chances,
There you go.
3.
Just on
They've basically doubled the big chances. Now, why have they doubled the big chances? Because their actual football now, obviously getting to the edge of the box, we talk about XG under Graham Potter, but they're creating double the amount of big chances. So why are they then scoring more goals? Obviously, they're creating bigger chances and better chances. So that's why, when you look at the expected goal per shot, it's gone from 14th to 7th, and the shot conversion has improved. Now, you might say, well, he went and got a striker. Everyone said Graham Potter needed a striker. Well, they haven't gone and bought one. They've got, obviously, Ferguson up front now, but we'll show clips where he doesn't really play up front at times. But the reason the shot conversion's a lot better, because they're creating bigger chances. It's not just about XG, it's how the quality of those chances, hence why they're scoring more goals.
And then our last piece of sound comes from Eric Ten Hag and what he actually thought about the match after the fact. He was asked by our friends at Sky Sports in the Premier League what he thought, and the word he used, he did not hold back.
You can have setbacks, but what can't happen is that you don't stick together, and you have to do your job. And it's not possible. We make the wrong decisions in the transition, but we didn't run a match the runs. We didn't track back, and that's for me unprofessional.
That's hard for you to accept, but as we stand here right now, what are your feelings as to how that came about, why it came about, and also why, with senior players on the pitch, they weren't able to compose themselves?
I don't know. In this moment, what I have seen, I think first half we play really decent. We created the better chances, and then in the end we concede one goal, and then straight after halftime 2. But then stick to the plan, and it's 3-0. Okay, then you lose a game, but you have to keep your head up.
Is embarrassing too strong a word to use for that second half performance?
It's really unprofessional.
Arsenal and Bournemouth, incredible game here. Bournemouth had a 2-0 lead, was tied at 2. Reece Nelson gets the game winner at 90 plus 7. Arsenal survives, gets full points at a minus 455. The other 10 o'clock matches. Aston Villa, big 3 points against Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace is in that third group that we talk about at a plus 116. Villa got the win. Palace, heading to Villa Park, was a plus 264. Brighton, big 4-0 win over West Ham. And the storm clouds once again circling around David Moyes. Has he lost the locker room with his attempts at pragmatic play and trying to keep West Ham afloat? We will wait and see. But De Zerbi at a minus 145 gets the win at the Amex for Brighton and Hove Albion. West Ham went into the match at a plus 420. Chelsea, 1-0 win over Leeds. A lot of questions involving Graham Potter continued, as that was only his second win in his first 14 matches across all competitions for Chelsea at 2-6-6. They get the win at a minus 172 at Stamford Bridge. Shocker, with Wolves knocking off Tottenham by the score of 1-0 at the Molineux at a plus 227. That was the number for the Wolves win and the draw. Spurs went into it as a favorite at a plus 135. did not get the win. Then Manchester City and Newcastle. Manchester City trying to stay within shouting distance of Arsenal. They do so with the win 2-0 at a minus 204 at trying to keep their spot in the Premier League second, chasing after Arsenal at the Etihad. So what does that do when it comes to the standings? Once again, we mention Arsenal and we mention Manchester City. Even now on matches at 26, the margin is still 5 at 63 points to 48. Manchester City, if it comes down to it, has scored 7 more goals than Arsenal at present as we head into Matchweek 27. Manchester United, with the loss, took a big hit on their goal difference. It's now down to +6 at 49 points. They still have a match in hand with the teams that are above them. Spurs currently in 4th, 26 matches played, 45 points. Liverpool on the charge, unbeaten in their last 5. Still have a match in hand, and they could jump Tottenham in the standings on goal difference right now to +19 to a +10. Newcastle, 2 matches in hand with folks above. 41 points. They've lost 2 in a row. Fulham, 39 points in 7th place right now. Brighton at 38 points, tied with Brentford. Brighton on goal difference, +14 to +8, ahead of to earn the 8th place spot. Brighton has only played 23 matches, so they can have as much as 3 matches to make up points over a team like, say, Fulham, who's played 26. Brentford's only played 24. They've got 38. They're unbeaten in their last 5. Bottom half of the table, Chelsea is at 34 points. They're at -1 in goal difference ahead of Aston Villa, who's at -7. Both have played 25 points. Crystal Palace starts group number 3. Now, here's where the fun starts. 9 teams, 6 points. Crystal Palace in 12th, 27 points, a goal difference of -11. Wolves are at a -16. They've played 26, so Palace with a match in hand. Nottingham Forest, 26 points, and they have a goal difference of -24. Leicester, 7 wins, 3 draws, 15 losses. They are at 24 points right now on the season. They're in 15th place. They've lost 3 in a row. West Ham, we mentioned West Ham, 23 points. They've lost 2 of their last 3. Goal difference of -10, 25 matches played. They're in 16th place. Leeds, currently out of the relegation zone on goal difference alone. They've lost 3 of 4, and they have 1 less match played than Everton, both at 22 points. Your drop zone right now. Everton, 22 points. They've lost 3 of their last 5. Southampton with the big win. They've now won 2 of 3. They're at 21 points. They're ahead of Bournemouth on goal difference, -21 to -27. So that's where things stand right now. Everton, Southampton, Bournemouth. Right now, that's your relegation zone. But that third group, 12th through 20th, separated by only 6 points. Let's take a peek at the weekend in the Premier League. And for the 11th and the 12th, 6 matches, 4 matches, and then you've got the midweek. But we can tackle the 15th and the 17th on the next edition of Prem and Proper. On the 11th, early match at the Vitality, Liverpool on a hot streak at a -222. They go and play Bournemouth, and Bournemouth is a +584. 10 o'clock, Everton hosting Brentford. Interesting matchup. Both teams within about 10 when it comes to your juice boxes in the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal. Everton at a +170 at home, hosting Brentford, who's a +177. Your draws a +224. Leeds, Elland Road, hosting Brighton. Brighton a -102. Going up against Leeds, your draws a +270. Leeds need points at a +281. Leicester at the King Power hosting Chelsea. Chelsea coming off of the win in the midweek in Champions League at a +102. Leicester at a +283. Your draws a +260. Nottingham Forest at Spurs. Spurs come in at a -227. Nottingham Forest and Steve Cooper come in at a +655. Your late game on Saturday at 12:30. Crystal Palace north of +800 at Selhurst, hosting Manchester City, who's a -278. In the composite, your draws a +413. Your 4 matches on your Sunday. 3 of them at 10 o'clock. Fulham hosting Arsenal at Craven Cottage. Arsenal's a -169. Fulham is a +478. Your draws north of +315. Manchester United hosting Southampton. Big favorite, no surprise. How do they rebound after that match where they lose 7-0? Manchester United's a -278. Southampton almost a +800. West Ham hosting Aston Villa. Interesting notes here to pay attention to. We've talked about David Moyes and West Ham at a plus 124. Interesting number there. Villa's a plus 239 going into the match on the road, and your 12:30 on your Sunday. Newcastle hosting Wolves. Newcastle's a minus 147. Your draw's a plus 288. And Wolves are a plus 443 in the composite. So that's another round of Prem and Proper here at SDH. Thanks for hanging out with us, and enjoy the time in the Premier League as the race to stay up, the race to go to Europe, continues with only about a dozen matches to go. For everybody here at SDH, play it safe, everybody. Enjoy your games this weekend.